Hello, everyone. Welcome to this BAKERpedia seminar all about the best of baking, the best of bakery in 2023. I'm Mark Floerke, and today I'm joined by Dr. Lin Carson to discuss the best bakery trends of 2023 and what is coming next in 2024. This seminar is brought to you by, drumroll please, us, the BAKERpedia team. We will be reviewing the best bakery trends of 2023 and what's coming next in 2024. From keto baking to sugar reduction, we will review all of the novel bakery trends of the year and highlights of bakery production throughout the year. We will also share some of our thoughts on what is ahead for the upcoming year and how bakers around the world can prepare to fulfill your customers' needs while keeping the consistency and quality of your products. So welcome to this fireside chat with Dr. Lin and I. Please do say hi in the chat box and let us know where you're from. And for questions that you would like us to discuss, put those in the Q&A box, please. So say hi in the chat. Questions in the Q&A. Okay.
Everyone say
How
hi
are
in the
you,
chat.
Dr. Lin?
Hey, how are you? I just brought
Excellent.
my sweater today.
Ah,
And this particular reindeer does blink. Do you see it?
yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
But
I can see the
I'm
lights
going to turn it
blinking.
off because it's distracting to me. Well, welcome everyone to this fire chat for the last webinar of the year. Wow, that's so many people here. That's awesome. Yeah, Mark, we've had quite an interesting year and we've seen so many things happen in the forum and happen in the trend scene. And, so basically, let's talk about it, right? What are you
Absolutely.
seeing,
Yeah.
Mark?
I've seen, I don't know about you, Dr. Lin, but I've seen all kinds of things in the news with sugar challenges in a variety of different ways. In Europe, in Central Europe, the price of sugar is skyrocketing. It's going extremely high. It's had an effect on world sugar, so our sugar prices here in the US and Canada are going up as well. I'm not sure exactly what the cause is. I think it may be just raw material, crop sourcing, or things like that. I know another cause in Canada is that there has been a very long and ongoing strike of Rogers Sugar out in Western Canada, who are the main supplier of sugar in Western Canada and the Northwestern US. So that's created a bottleneck of sugar availability. So that's the thing. So this is an opportunity I see is to look at sugar reduction. I mean, we've had some excellent seminars on sugar reduction.
Yeah.
And, besides, the obvious trends, which we'll get to, things like keto and stuff like that, and, and just generally healthier nutrition by reducing sugar, now we're reached a point where it's actually going to be cheaper to take the sugar out and put some high intensity sweetener in.
I believe, that's correct. I believe we learned that in the ingredients sugar reduction
Yep.
Webinar. If you guys are interested in listening to how to take out your sugar and build back the functional blocks, that's a really good webinar to listen to. And I agree with you. I think in the US, how it affects a lot of us is your sugar edit line, right? So there is a huge factor to how much sugar you're adding to the sugar edit line. And a lot of people are looking for alternatives to include sugar within fruit juice or, agave syrup and all these natural sources to to really include the sugars out of the sugar edit line. Excuse me for the agave sugar, but if you add agave syrup in there, it's still going to go on the sugar edit line.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
basically, there are other technologies, like yeast-based technologies, like sourdough fermentation technologies that actually does give that little bit of resilient residual sugars.
Hmm.
Also look at other possibility like malt products.
Yep.
When you add malt in your product, you get a natural sweetener, but it doesn't necessarily go on the sugar added line.
Yep.
So things like that, that could really help formulate and provide that humectancy, that chewiness, that browning, so all that stuff. I feel like it's still a very vibrant scene in terms of sugar replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The one hot commodity that is popular in North America, at least already, is allulose, because it doesn't get, even though it is considered a rare sugar or a rare form of sugar, it doesn't get classified as a sugar for the sugar added labeling. And for in Canada, for Canada, they did a different system where they group all of the sugars together in the ingredient declaration. So it falls there. But in the Europe, allulose is not allowed yet. It's still under review for to see if make sure that it's safe. And the benefit of allulose is that it can help you with your sugar reduction. And it is I think it's 70% as sweet as sugar.
yep,
And it provides most of the humectancy, the same kind of browning. And it also is relatively inexpensive compared to some of the high intensity sweeteners and things like that. And it's considered natural, right? Because it is extracted from plants to produce, right? So much like
correct.
how sucrose is extracted from plants, right?
Right. I think there is still a lot to do with sugar, and bakers are going to have the upper hand if you innovate using this particular technology, sugar
Yep.
replacement. I think it's still very vibrant.
Yep.
Again, BAKERpedia is sponsored by companies and innovative ingredient companies that sponsor our content.
Hmm.
And if you need any samples, reach out to us, or for this particular sugar replacement technology, Icon Foods and Malt Products,
Yep.
and they would have solutions for you to do your sugar substitutions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those would be perfect. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, let's go
What's
on
up?
to the next point.
Yeah. Let's go. Well, yes, this is something that I saw a little bit of conversation about, not as much as I expected when I was at EBA in October. But of course, what is going on globally is the impact, first of all, of the war in Ukraine. Ukraine is the largest wheat exporter in the world, which currently they aren't because they can't get the wheat out of there because of the war. Um, and so that puts a strain on all of the other wheat sources, Russia, Canada, Australia, United States, because of course they're going to sell to the highest bidder. So it has been having an effect on the wheat market pricing, as the prices have been going up huge. But also, to add insult to injury, by having a little bit less already because of the Ukraine war to be able to blend, because in terms of what they're exporting, where is a lot of the other, there's less available for blending now to produce a consistent grist, or do you keep things as minimally changing from crop year to crop year as possible? So what's happened on top of that is weather. If you may recall, we talked about in the summer, we had forest fires everywhere in Canada and in the US in particularly. So it has been an incredibly dry season. And that has had an effect on wheat crops. Now, we don't like the crops usually to be too wet, but too dry is not really any good either. So we're getting very inconsistent samples from regions in terms of the protein quantity and protein quality. So there again, it affects blending. So you're going to see changes in wheat flour. You're going to see lower protein wheat flours, or even if the protein isn't that much lower, the protein quality, the stability, the absorption, things like that is going to change. So it's important to stay in contact with your supplier, and so that you get to know what is happening in terms of the changes before it hits the bowl. Okay, so because otherwise you're going to be SOL and having to just try and figure things out on the fly. So that's still coming in process in the pipeline a bit. Most large bakeries will have already experienced all of the changeovers for new crop in the US and Canada. And maybe there's just some trickling going on to some extent, right? But those are the main things that I see currently right now.
And I would like to add to that, wheat quality has always been an issue, and we don't see bakers stepping up to the plate to learn and understand how to monitor your flour quality and how to deal with it, right? So we've had a couple seminars this year to do with I think the Mixolab, Farinograph, the Alveograph, and some thought leadership Thursdays to talk about these things.
Yep.
So if you have the time, go back into our YouTube library and take a look at these webinars, and just basically teach yourself and your team to understand what wheat quality is. Because if you don't understand wheat quality, then you're going to add more gluten. You're going to add more dough improvers. And you're going to be wondering, why aren't your employees doing that, right? So it all boils down to look at your spec sheet, understand your wheat quality, and if you still consistently experience those issues, purchase those analytical instrumentation. By the way, KPM Analytics is an amazing analytical flour quality testing company, right? They have everything from the Mixolite, Alveograph, starch damage analysis, the GlutoPeak, Sightline, everything you need to create a lab. KPM Analytics is there for you. And if you just want to look at the Farinograph, Bray Bender is there to help you with your needs to understand your flour dough absorption. If you just want to put in flour and dough analysis, just one, right? So we have provided these solutions to you throughout the year, just so that you can make the best decision for yourself on what you need to really create a program, a robust program for incoming flour quality. Because once you have a handle on that, then all these different changes in even your staff and your dough rheology, that's all going to be a little more consistent over the year. So and all these flour quality, dough rheology, waste is it's all a victim of people. And we will talk about that later, about people and staffing issues.
Again, as I said, I'm always a big proponent of keeping in contact with your supplier. Not so much the distributor, but the flour miller in this case, right? Distributors sometimes will go the extra mile as well. I know that several of the flour milling companies in North America do regular free seminars for their customers to teach them hands-on, this is how an alveograph works. This is so you can learn everything on the seminar, on the video, and then you can actually do it in practice in a lab with other people together, so you can see it live and get an even better understanding of how this whole thing works, right? I know ADM would always do what they called wheat school, and they would do 2 or 3 a year and it was always limited seating, and it was like you had to get on the list early, right? And so I'm sure that the others do it as well, and there are many different companies doing these types of training sessions for you for free, because it helps them communicate with you to keep you loyal to their product, right? Just as we mentioned it, how are bakeries coping with staffing issues?
Ha,
Well,
see, I
I've
could
seen,
forecast the questions coming.
yeah, I've seen a bunch of things this year. You know, as we've been kind of mostly out of the woods of COVID, and everybody sort of was maybe expecting that they're all going to go back to work. Well, some people changed paths, or are in other industries or other employers or things like that. And there are a lot of staffing issues. There are a lot of shortages. Um, and some of it is wage related, but that has been mostly alleviated with changes to minimum wages and so on. And many of these people are offering much more than minimum wage and still having staffing issues, right? So one of the things that I saw a lot of at IBA in Germany is a lot of automation or mechanization and things like that. So there you may start to see bakeries, even small and medium-sized bakeries, start to invest more and more in machines when they're having challenges in keeping people available, right? And not so much that they can't keep the staff, but that they can't even find them, really. So we've never, and so it's not just the baking industry. Many industries, hospitality and many others, the nursing industry and so on, they've not bounced back to their staffing numbers pre-COVID. It is, while we're seeing great low unemployment numbers and job growth and so on, but it is not replenishing the existing job numbers that we had in many sectors that we need to look into other ways of coping. Streamlining your product range is another way of looking at things, right? The things that aren't good volume or good profit sellers, cut them, cut your losses where you can, so that you can manage the product volume and so on that you are producing. And there again, work with the equipment suppliers. Don't talk to just one. Talk to one or two, and make sure you're getting the best suggestions and ideas. We know our sponsor and friend Julio Aviles from A&A Baking Solutions. They're really good at helping you manage CapEx and kind of saying, hey, look at first what realistically is the volume that you're going to be making or can achieve in X amount of time, so that you don't over purchase on equipment and now have to try and sell into your production productivity cost, and you're struggling then on the other end of things. Grow with your volume, right? Do it almost modular in that sense, right?
Yeah, and I have been to many bakeries this year. Unfortunately, the underlying theme is we just can't get enough people. It's not that we're not paying them enough. I've seen the salaries. They are
Yep.
amazing salaries. They
Yep.
have never been so high, right? The issue is not salary, Mark. The issue
Is
is
availability of
leadership
people.
and the type of work. So you're in competition with a lot of other people in the local area for, jobs. That's the biggest thing, is how are you going to attract these people, right? So that's key. And I see a lot of issues when it comes to leadership and management to deal with accountability and waste. When your waste levels are up in the double digits, and you keep asking yourself, oh yeah, I'm not kidding. I've been to bakeries. I have no idea how they handle double-digit waste and double-digit downtime. So these bakeries have obviously a real issue to deal with, And when I deep dive some more deeper into the company, I hear accountability, I hear absences, and I look at the wages are unbelievably high. When I look at all these incidences, it shows to me that leadership has a problem.
Yep.
And this is where I, share with everyone. I said, work on your leadership, work on getting the right people to the table that lead your team. Because if you don't do that right now, you're forever going to spend that money to train and retrain, train and retrain, because there's such a high turnover in your company. And I would like to offer my services as an executive coach to help train your leadership team to get the people up and running and be cohesive within your team. Because when you work on the people issues, your waste level and your accountability, improves, So the issue is, yes, we have been seeing a shortage of labor in the bakery. And we have slowly evolved to mechanization, automation. But if that still doesn't help your bottom line and you see your waste numbers and your accountability goes out the door, that's when there is a leadership issue.
Yep.
So, it's all the 3 Ps, right? I always like to talk about 3 Ps. It's the product, process, and people. And product and process are really easy to solve. It's the people issue that is more challenging. All right, so let's go on to our next point in our Best of Bakery this year.
Our current health trends, such as high fiber and protein, continuing. And I'm going to say a great big yes.
Yes, yeah,
Keto diets.
in conjunction with the sugar, definitely.
Yep. Keto, high fiber for generally, whole grains and things like that are continue to grow. I mean, I think you even see it, in a lot of the supermarkets, you could see the amount of white bread that is on the shelf is slowly getting less and less, and it's being crowded out by the variety of different whole grain and multigrain breads and things like that that are there.
That's so true, Mark. This is what I like to do with white bread. I like to just take it, just throw it. Because I don't think white bread is a great representation of our industry. There's so many other amazing, phenomenal stuff that the baking industry produces, and white bread seems to continually give us a bad rep. Don't you think?
Yep, absolutely. And, protein is still also the big trend that a lot of people looking towards, in terms of, now they're getting a little bit tired of what are they called again? The burgers, right? All of a sudden I forget the names.
Sliders? No.
Yeah. But
Impossible burgers?
The Impossible, and the one is called the Impossible, and then there's another one. But those two basically, right? Those protein, vegetable protein replacements.
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah.
As long as you put lots of toppings on them, they're great, right? Because you drown out the flavor, so to speak, right?
Yeah, I do think that America takes a lot of its bread on sandwiches and burgers, so you do have a point there. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of people, I mean, by the first of the year, everyone's going to go keto, trust me. Even if they go keto for a month, we're going to see a huge swing into this high protein, high fiber market.
Yep. And I have a podcast coming up where I got to sit down and chat with Sebastian Canon, who is a MOF, Milieu Ouvrier de France, which is like one of the best workers of France that he achieved. And he is one of the founders of the French Pastry School in Chicago. And he's also one of the co-founders in a company that are producing a high protein bread. And I worked with one of the other co-founders a little bit too, where they've discovered certain bacteria and enzymes in the way that they ferment the gluten protein to make it a more complete protein, so that they're adding this. They lose the gluten functionality, but they gain the protein quality, and they're making a very high protein bread. And that's another trend. I mean, seeing protein showing up as an ingredient and creating keto products, like even with chia seed and hemp seed and so on, where we didn't have that before, where it's not necessarily targeting gluten-free. Some of them are, but it's more with in view towards increasing protein, reducing starches, carbohydrates, and things like that.
Yeah, which I really want to point out. Banexia has a really good chia-based
Yep.
fiber and powder, and it's very versatile and very pleasant in terms of it doesn't give you that gritty or slimy feel of most hydrocolloids. And with the chia fiber, it has lots of omegas, so it's natural omegas.
Yep.
And looking into the future of producing high fiber and high protein products, you really need to have a toolbox of fibers and protein to dig into to really hit those lines on the ingredient label.
Yep.
So definitely take a look at the webinars that we had this year on high protein to be able to create that keto friendly label that will help you stand out in the market.
Yep.
Not forgetting our keto baking book. So with our keto baking book that you can download for free, it will share with you a lot of the tips of the trade on how to bake for high protein and fiber.
Is sustainability important for current baked goods and customers?
Absolutely. This theme happens every year. And the first time it happened probably about 8 years ago, I was like, well, when is this going to go away? But it keeps coming back stronger and stronger every year. And mainly I think it's because the technologies that sustain sustainability, technologies that sustain sustainability is coming on strong. We're going to see more ingredient technologies. We're going to see more different practices. We're going to see better energy use, so we need to still consider these things as bakers as we bake forward. Is sustainability. Are your practices sustainable? Are your people working on those sustainable practices? Are we using sustainable ingredients?
Yes.
And that matters because not because I say, right? Not because I care about it, but your consumers are asking for it. Your consumers are reading your packages. What kind of a brand story are you telling? And this is why sustainability is important. And from sustainability comes a whole bunch of other processing technologies like upcycling. So that's how I feel this particular trend is really, really important. What do you think, Mark?
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen this grow gradually, and in North America, we mostly, thankfully, are quite sustainable with when it comes to palm oils, and that we don't really have much of a difficulty there because of the commitment of the processors and companies here in the US and Canada and Mexico who will only use sustainable palm. And that's important to a lot of consumers who are very environmentally aware, because there are problems in parts of the world where there is huge deforestation taking place to be able to put in palm groves. And that is then destroying animal habitat and so many other things in the ecology. And it's not really improving the lives of the locals at all or anything like that. So there's the move towards sustainable palm has been really big. And I mean, large producers like Ferrero, they felt this when they kind of ignored it at first. And they had a huge backlash in France, where basically their people were taking their chocolates off the shelf because and including things like Nutella and stuff like that, because of it not having sustainable palm. So that has created a big backlash. So it's things have changed a lot that way, and we're seeing more and more environmental consumer awareness in that sense here in North America too. Right?
Yeah, and I think we're still going to see a new generation of bakers, if you're interested in what the next gen bakers look like. A new gen of bakers that care about sustainability, that cares about the transparency, and ask these questions: where is this ingredient from? How is it being made? Right? And it's important to ingredient companies to really start asking those questions
Yep.
and establish your story and establish your brand and how it stands among sustainability for the next gen bakers. So
Yep.
definitely I see sustainability as a strong trend next year. It's not going to go away.
Yeah. I mean, there's even things at the bakery level where some people are, I mean, the simple things, the obvious ones are like you talked about reducing waste. So reducing food waste is all part of sustainability as well, but also reducing water waste so that you are cleaning and using water effectively so that you're not, wasting too much water. And then of course,
Absolutely.
energy, right? I mean, not to waste energy, and or if you're in a position where you can put solar panels on the roof of the building, or put up windmills or something to help reduce your energy footprint use sources, that all helps, right? It's a little drop sometimes in a big bucket, but it helps, right? And even just to be able to say to your customers that you're doing your part to help support sustainability of the environment by doing so, it's a small investment to make to keep that customer loyalty.
Just one more point to add to that, Mark.
Yep.
Water usage, energy usage. It's all because of people, right? And I'd like to give you an example. I've been to plants before where water usage and energy usage is higher because they have the wrong production planner or the production team isn't looking at this. So just a tip, right? This is a tip. The last changeovers you have, the last shutdowns you have, the last SKUs you put in that line, and like what Mark said about streamlining your SKUs, improves your water usage and reduces your energy footprint. So get the right people in place, get the right production planning team in place, and make sure that these don't happen more than it should. Because if the more you do your changeovers, the more cleaning you're gonna do, the more water you use. The more water you use, the more it's like a vicious cycle,
Yeah. And
right? So
we have a bad
again,
habit
people,
of
people,
tending to
people
think.
is really important.
Yeah, and we have a bad habit of tending to think of water as being free. While it may be relatively low cost, but it is definitely not free. And it is renewable, considered a renewable resource, but only up to a certain point. I mean,
Correct.
as we're starting to see more and more in the environment.
One more thing, I promise. One more thing. Bakeries are supposed to be water free, right? If you were seeing people blasting water in your bakeries, the first question that should come to your mind is, why are they doing that? Someone's not doing their work clearly when water is standing in a bakery. Okay, I've seen this happen many times. And when I ask that question, it comes down to a person issue, a
Yeah.
people personnel issue, right? They're not trained the right way. They're not told what to do. And most importantly, nobody follows up with them. Okay, so things like that is like no water in bakery whatsoever. We know what that leads to. And if that's still a water standing issue in your bakery, give me a call. We need to talk.
You know, if you ever walked into the yard of a flour mill on a after a rainy day, you know why water is not a good idea in a bakery.
Never a good idea in a bakery.
The artisan trends have been growing in the last year. What does it look like in the future?
More.
Yep.
It's not going to stop.
Yeah.
And it's because people associate artisan bread with a better lifestyle, you know. Not that it's any healthier. I don't think it's healthier, but artisan to them mean longer ferments, mean sourdough, means whole grains, you know, so I don't see it going away. What do you think, Mark?
I agree. Well, the longer fermentation, there's still research being done, but it's showing promise as to providing easier digestion, improvements to gut health, and so on. There's potentially some speculation as to, with the right kind of bacteria and length of fermentation, that even gluten breads could become consumable by some celiacs who are not as sensitive, right? But that, I think we're still a couple years off before we get to that point. But yeah, definitely artisan, and in that sense also things that are baked fresh for consuming today and tomorrow. These, you know, so there's both trends. We're going to get into the shelf life trends yet a little bit too, but you know, this is also still a big important trend. And I feel that as a bakery, you, to some extent, you need to decide and plant your foot or your post as to where you stand. Are you going to be a fresh goods bakery who offers things, you know, 5, 6, 7 days a week, freshly baked all the time to your customers? Or are you going to be a producer who ships far and wide? You can't really be both. Not in today's market. They're two very desperately different products. And so you need to kind of decide what you're doing. I mean, there are successful chains that produce product, freeze it, ship it to their locations, and then retherm and so on with success. But there again, that's their entire model. They have no longer any fresh bake on site in any of their locations. It's all done through distribution channels, right? So, but artisan definitely, we see more and more quality artisan, and by artisan bakeries, I think I don't mean just sourdough. I mean also other things like laminated pastries, you know, the nice, the fanciful desserts and things like that, and things, these types of things. These are growing more and more, where particularly in major cities and well-to-do suburban areas where there's a lot of disposable income, because they appreciate that quality and the effort that goes into it. They will pay $4 and $5 for a croissant, but it better be a damn good croissant. Pardon me for using language, but I mean, and you know,
I've done that. I paid $4 for a damn good croissant, but it was
yeah,
worth it.
I mean, that place that Ross sent me to in Los Angeles,
What is it
incredible.
called? What is it called?
Yeah, no, Portos, I think it was called,
Oh,
wasn't it?
Portos. Yes,
Yes,
Portos,
yeah.
my favorite.
Absolutely
Amazing.
incredible, absolutely
Yeah.
amazing, right? And they have a lineup all day long. There, people are lined up there all the time. It's just
I
crazy.
can't figure out why people are lining out. I just
Yeah,
can't,
it's really good. It's consistent. That's
it's
why.
consistent,
It
it's good quality. Every time you go in there, you expect, the same thing, and they just deliver it. They just deliver it
Yeah,
every single day.
yeah. It may not be the best croissant in the world or the best cannoli, but they are very, very good, and they're always good. They're always consistent.
Don't forget the price too. The price on
Yes,
their
they're actually
pastries are
quite a bit
not
cheaper than
that
a lot of places. Yeah,
extravagant.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely a huge fan
Yeah.
of Portos.
What novel alternatives have been developed to preserve product shelf life? Okay, here we go. I think in our Baking Industry Professionals Forum on Facebook, shelf life is probably the biggest topic. I got to go through and tag it.
Number
Yeah,
one topic on our
yeah,
forums. How do we make this last longer in the shelf? How do we make it softer? How do we make it mold free? How it's like nonstop all year we're being hit by that question.
yeah.
It's shelf life, right?
And
So Mark, what do we
you touched
usually
on the three
recommend?
most important pillars of shelf life that we always need to clarify when we are working with shelf life, because first of all, there's preservation in terms of that it doesn't mold, right? And then secondly is like softness, things that we want to maintain texture. It might also be maintaining crispness in certain things. And thirdly, a lot of times people forget flavor. It's still got to taste as good, right? Because some flavors, especially a lot of the natural flavors that are not as concentrated as well, they can flash off easily. Looking to your flavor company is one that we can kind of cross off quickly. It's still just as important, but make sure you pay attention to flavor, that you're not losing flavor in baking and you're not losing flavor during storage and aging as well.
That is true. And I think to your point, a lot of bakers ignore oxidation over shelf life.
Yeah.
We don't really talk about it. But it does come up occasionally when a baker says, well, it smells different, right? It smells different from day one. Well, the reason it smells different is because of oxidation, right? If you constantly subject your baked product to air and light, it's going temperature fluctuations like freezer and all that stuff, there is just going to be oxidation. That's nothing you can do about unless you use EDTA, antioxidants, and a whole bunch of other things, right? So we can go in that, if you want, but the truth is we are consistently seeing more questions on shelf life and shelf life issues, and it's never going to go away. So if you're developing solutions, if you're an equipment or ingredient company developing solutions and you want to stay in business, this is the thing to look into, shelf life solutions. This year, particularly in terms of technology wise, I've seen ultraviolet technology coming from Denny's, and they do have an equipment that treats the product and tortillas with UV rays so that you can get a longer shelf life for tortillas. And if you need that information, reach out to us, support@bakerpedia.com, and we will hook you up. Other technologies include something similar. It's been forever, cultured wheat, cultured dextrose, cultured corn syrup, anything that's cultured that has the propionates, natural propionates in there.
But cultured wheat, you do. And it's got a kind of stinky kind of flavor to it.
Oh my God, it's unbearable, and this is, if you and I could start something, Mark, this is what I would like to stop the industry to do. I would like to stop everyone from going above 0.3% CalPro and 1.5% cultured wheat, because that really gives everyone a bad rap on how bad that product smells. I'm almost like embarrassed walking towards a bakery product that smells like CalPro. It's terrible, right? If you are dumping so much CalPro in there, it means that there's a lot of other issues with your process. The people not using the right sanitation methods, not packaging enough soon enough when it's cool, so these other things, right? So ingredient technology can only offer up a certain solution, in terms of shelf life, longevity, anti-mold. There are all these other issues too, to do with people, to do with process, that you need to look into. So please stop dumping more than 0.35% of CalPro. That's
and we got to remember too that even if you stop it from going moldy, it's still got to stay soft, right? I mean, if it's like bread or a donut or something. So there, I mean, the traditional technologies have been things like monodiglycerides and SSL. There's more and more interest towards more clean label type solutions, combinations. Now you can't use xanthan gum on its own, won't really do you much, but if you use xanthan in combination with lecithin and locust bean gum, then you can get a pretty good combined result that will emulate monodiglycerides to a point, right?
Right.
And then the other things that we're seeing more and more of, as you see, and we saw a fair bit of it at EBA as well, is enzymes. So there's a lot of different enzymes out there, and with enzymes you have to be careful. You need to really work with your supplier closely, because a little bit too much can do a lot of damage, right? You can get yourself into a lot of problems. A novel upcycling trend is developing. What are the current alternatives that have been developed? And yeah, this is really interesting.
Upcycling's coming, and it's
Yep.
getting strong because of sustainability, right?
One of the best ones I saw at EBA, and I have a bit of a chat coming up on one of the upcoming podcasts, is a grain. So think again, but with the R added in, a grain. And I'll tell you a little bit as a teaser about it. One of the things that caught me that was really interesting, caught my eye, is that they were giving away a bag of chips. And the thing was, they made these chips with spent brewer's grains. So in other words, the barley that had been used to brew beer, and they take those in, they clean them and dry them and mill them into a flour, and they made these chips with that flour. So if you ate this bag of chips together with a half a liter of beer, you ate the same amount of grain as was used to make your beer. So it was really cool. So, but they had breads there. They had sourdough breads and stuff there, and it's really good. And it's quite nutritious. And there's quite a process involved in recovering this and cleaning it and drying it out and making it usable as a grain. And they have different flavors. It's not they have from different grains or different types of roasts or different beers that they were made with and stuff. So it's really, really, there's some really interesting stuff happening there. Right?
Yeah, and as bakers for the next generation, why aren't we using our crumbs and waste and things that we produce that we can't sell? We got to think about these things, right? I mean, the technology is there. It's just maybe a little cost prohibitive, but think of ways that using your product to do other things other than animal feed. So there is this interesting new technology from the Protein Brewery. They use ugly vegetables, or what we call vegetables that that can't be sold usually in the supermarket, maybe because they got too many blemishes, whatever it is. So they take these products and they upcycle it and they make mycelium powder. So this mycelium powder, it's called fermentine. It's an upcycled product. It improves the protein content of your bread or your tortilla, and it also increases the fiber as well. So this is an interesting product trend to keep an eye on. I mean, if you want to try a sample of fermentine, reach out to us at support@BAKERpedia, and we can, work with the team to send you a sample. But basically, upcycling is such a huge trend, and to be able to use that word to market your brand assets, I think that's a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. And, I remember a friend of mine who has a bakery in the Toronto area, and they had a great way of They had a precise formula that worked for them. They didn't produce any waste to create product, but they just always seemed to manage to have enough. And it was for their whole wheat bread. They would reuse, basically they would soak husks from where, from slicing the bread, sometimes the husks fall off the ends, right?
Yeah.
Or bread or whole wheat bread that didn't get sold that day. And they would soak that in their sponge for the next day, as part of the formula. So they would reuse up to 10% of the flour weight would be reused whole wheat bread, right? And it became a very popular staple, so that they only made so much. They wouldn't make more because they didn't want to have to bake to make waste, right? So
Yeah.
it was dependent on their waste that they would make this particular loaf. It's a little bit denser, but it's got a rich flavor. It's very nutty and everything.
You're making me hungry.
Yeah. So yeah, upcycling in many ways is really, really a lot of opportunities there. Amazing things are happening with it in even in different parts of the various grains and fruits. Is they're looking more and more at things that go to animal feed or the waste, that how can more value be extracted from this, right? How can we make use of it for nutritional purposes and things like that?
Wow. Okay, that was a lot we covered.
Yeah, we did. Oh, we did great.
I'll be
We got a
surprised
minute
if there are
left.
any questions.
Pardon me for still coughing. I've got one of these
You gotta take
upper
care of that
respiratory
before eating all
devices.
that delicious Christmas goodies. You know what I want this year? I want to bite into a really good loaf of fruitcake. I've seen so many people, soaking their raisins and stuff. I want to try a fruitcake this year that's really, really good.
I'll buy you some of McFadgen's fruitcake and ship it to you. They're famous for their fruitcake here, right?
All right.
You may not
All
get
right.
it till January, but I'll.
It's okay. I heard these things last a long time.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah.
All right, let's start with the first question. You have an executive coaching program where it's only exclusive to companies that focus on leadership training. So I don't do one-on-one training. I go in and train the whole team. So if you're interested in that particular program, you can send an email to me. It's Lin, Lin, @BAKERpedia.com. It's called Fermotine.
Fermotine, yeah.
Fermotein. Me and Deb and I last week talked on it on Thursday, Thought Leadership Thursday. So if you could take a look at that video from YouTube last week, you would be able to learn more about it. It's a really interesting product. Again, thank you, Mark. This is going to be our last broadcast of the year.
Yep.
New year, new problems. So let's, send everything to the new year and let's enjoy whatever we have left of this year. It's been phenomenal. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a great year. It's been a busy year. So much has transpired this year. It's hard to wrap it all up in just a 1-hour conversation and fireside chat. So we'll have to see what we can do for next year and keep everything rocking and rolling and moving forward. And look forward to more seminars, more Thought Leadership Thursdays, more Wisdom Wednesdays, and more Baked in Science podcasts.